Today's video is about Jane Powell. Jane Powell was the all-American girl next door. With her gorgeous, big, beautiful eyes and her mesmerizing voice and radiant smile, she stole the hearts of many for generations to come. She was a phenomenal actress and entertainer. She wasn't just beauty, but she had brains also. To her peers, she is described as very welcoming, very nice, and very wholesome. It wasn't just an image on the screen, but who she was and what she practiced in her life. But Jane Powell suffered a lot of struggles, particularly with her mother, who was a stage mom that wanted her to be the next Shirley Temple so bad, and she forced her to not even go to school when Jane Powell wanted to go to school. She sacrificed her literal childhood and her life for the entertainment business. She brought to light exactly all of the horrors behind Hollywood and lifted the veil to show us what really goes on, not just with the bigwigs, because oftentimes we like to talk about the producers, the studios, the production companies, the directors, but we don't talk about the parents, the greedy parents behind the scenes, the greedy family members, the greedy spouses, the fake friendships, the fake relationships, and just the people, the greed. If it were not for greedy people, those directors would have no power. If it were not for greedy parents and greedy spouses and just greed in general, those studios will have no impact. But Jane Powell had to learn this unfortunate lesson. Not only was she forced into relationships that wasn't real, she was forced into friendships that wasn't real either, and she had to deal with the stage mom that put money before her very own daughter. We're going to talk about all of that and highlight some of her accomplishments, etc. But first, hey friend, welcome to my channel, Korean Allude, where we deep dive and break down the most iconic stars through history. If you're not yet subscribed, please be sure to do so. And if you're already subscribed, please turn on your notification bell so you never miss an upload. Now, without further ado, let's get into this video.
Me?
Yes, if you will be so kind.
Well, I don't know. I'm not prepared. If you haven't got bananas, don't be blue. Peanuts in a little bag are calling you. Mommy.
We look at pictures,
I work a puzzle,
and we just...
So Hollywood has certainly had its fair share of child stars, and Jane Powell is no exception. Thanks to many studio musicals, audiences saw Jane grow up on the screen from a charming teenager to a confident lady, while constantly showcasing her gorgeous soprano voice, right? And she could sing. My favorite version of song that she sang was Ave Maria. She sings it very beautiful. She has a very beautiful voice. So Powell was referred to as one of the last surviving stars of the golden age of Hollywood. She secured her place in history with her performance in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Despite bouts with severe depression and insecurity, Powell retained a public image of the all-American girl next door and was a symbol of simpler times. Powell's role in Song of the Open Road in 1944, a film that presented Powell as a wholesome girl next door, was suspected to have pigeonholed her in future musicals. In 1960, Powell was awarded a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So she got hers early. I love when they're celebrated way before they pass. So Powell was born Suzanne Lorraine Burse, the only child of Paul Emerson Burse and Eileen Baker Burse, on April 1st, 1929 in Portland, Oregon. So Powell began dance lessons when she was 2 years old. Her parents had an obsession with her becoming the next Shirley Temple. So by the age 5, Powell had appeared on the Portland's children's radio program, Stars of Tomorrow. She took dance lessons at the Agnes Peters School of Dance, where the Burse family met a talent scout and dance instructor who convinced the family to move to Oakland, California, to attract Hollywood talent agents. After 3 months of living in a hotel room, the family returned to Portland, and her father took a job managing a Banbury Cross apartment building. While living in the apartment, Powell was tasked with taking out the trash as one of her household chores. In order to make the chore more enjoyable, Powell would sing as she worked. In response, fellow tenants suggested that she take voice lessons. They collectively saved their money, and Powell was able to begin taking her lessons while also attending the Beaumont Grade School in Portland. But there's a dark side to this, of course. Never let your young daughters, take out the trash, okay? It's very important to have a man in the house. Don't just be having them out late taking trash and doing all of that. I didn't like that her parents did that. So only with the benefit of hindsight did Powell realize how unhappy and dysfunctional her family life and childhood had been, with two parents who seemingly shared the same obsessive ambitions for their daughter, but little love for each other. Not only did her parents deprive her of her childhood and force her into a career she did not want, she also had to contend with her mother's alcoholism and short temper. As a child, Powell was taken advantage of by the tenants in the apartment building. You see what I mean with having her take out trash? And her dad was managing this apartment building, and the tenants would see this little girl taking out trash, and of course they're going to take advantage physically, if you catch my drift. But Jane Powell did not disclose the, physical trauma that she endured to her parents for fear of aggravating her mother, who was already a heavy drinker and had a volatile temper and probably would punish her for what happened to her. So fear silenced her. And that is very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate. And you have to create a demeanor and an aura around you where your kids feel safe to speak to you and don't suffer in silence. This is a quote from Powell. She said, "I never thought of being sad," she wrote. "I never knew I was." But at the same time, she recalled that she spent a lot of her childhood crying. And this is, she said, "Crying all the time didn't make me the most desirable, fun-loving girl to be around." That's sad. She didn't think she was lovable or fun-loving, and so she even started suppressing her own tears to appear lovable, to, appear charismatic. And that's why you see a lot of the people with the brightest, biggest smile and the funniest personalities typically are hiding something. And be a little bit compassionate, the jokester in the group. Powell was 12 years old. A talent promoter helped her get selected as the Oregon Victory Girl. She began singing on Portland radio station and traveled Oregon for 2 years, singing and selling victory bonds. While vacationing in California in 1943, Powell won a Hollywood talent show and signed a contract with MGM Theaters in Hollywood the next day at the age of 14. She wanted to go back to high school and to university, but her mother forbade this as she was the only one making good money. Child stars. This is a quote from her. She said, "They had given up so much for me that I had to do this for them," she says. "It's something they really wanted. I wanted to go to high school. That was my utopia. My mother said, well, you can always quit, but once you get into the system, you just don't quit. It was finances for the family," end quote. So a lot of parents do this where their kid starts to make way more money than them, and all of a sudden, whatever the kid wants no longer matters. Or it's not just actors and actresses and singers with parents like this. You have gymnasts, you have football players, you have track stars, whoever. A lot of these kids probably don't even care for the sport. It's not just acting. Let's keep in mind that if you're a mom watching, if you're a dad watching, keep in mind that any field your child is in, always listen to what they want, because a lot of these child stars spiral later on in life because they're literally miserable and so unhappy, and they're overworking at such a young age. And it is probably the most cruel, most evil thing you could possibly ever do to a child that literally just wants to be their age, Nonetheless, after signing with MGM, Powell was lent to United Artists for her first film, Song of the Open Road, where she played the character of Jane Powell and took that as her professional name. The studio didn't make much of an effort when it changed her name, merely giving her the character's moniker in her first film, Jane Powell. "They called me," and this is a quote from her, she said, "They called me on the phone one day. I remember I was ironing, and they told me that was my name, and that was that," she says. "Given the choice, which she wasn't, I always liked the name Cheryl." So she would have chose the name Cheryl, but I like Jane Powell. It fits her a lot more. Though Jane describes the life of a child star as a lonely one, she did make friends while working at MGM. Of the early days at MGM, she would attend school on the studio lot with other young actors, including Debbie Reynolds and Elizabeth Taylor, and she said we all got along. but notes they were close friends but obliged whenever the studio needed publicity shots of their stable of young stars at play. Roddy McDowell, however, was her BFF, she says. You know, if you get her book or her biography, like you read into it, she really talks about the fake friendships of Hollywood. And I always say this, when you see all these fake friends, whether it's the actor girls, the singer girls, the rapper girls, and they band, there's no friendship. And they do it as a publicity, and you think, oh my God, they're best friends. When I tell you Hollywood is so manufactured, guys, if you haven't known by now watching my video, it is manufactured down to the friendships, the families. I told you people will get married and have babies with people they don't really love and look so happy in love just for their careers, just for like a mutual benefit, you know? It's just terrible. It's terrible. It's interesting. But she and Debbie Reynolds shared an April 1st birthday. Additionally, Powell was also close friends with Elizabeth Taylor. In fact, Powell was a bridesmaid for Taylor's first wedding. Later, Taylor would be a bridesmaid at Powell's wedding. So Powell says she was grateful for the studio system because it took care of everything from singing and dancing lessons to publicity to management. She said it was like going to college. And I so wanted to go to college too, but my mother said, why do you want to go? You already have a job. And she was right, but that's not why I wanted to go. But I was so young and I just did what I was told, end quote. Powell felt comfortable in the studio system, which was famous for developing child stars, and found its head, the legendary Louis B. Mayer, like a father to me. So Powell's second feature film was Delightfully Dangerous.
I wish I were there. We just knew the meaning of true happiness.
Then she appeared in Holiday in Mexico, where she met Roddy McDowell, who became a lifelong friend. More films followed, including Three Daring Daughters, A Date with Judy, Luxury Liner, Nancy Goes to Rio, and 2 Weeks with Love.
I love the charming way you speak of Judah. Where's the me that I used to be? If I'm all the things that you see in me, where is Judy?
You mean Judah Love?
That's Mr. Erickson. He's awake.
Powell lamented that she only ever got to play the parts of teenage girls. She had got to the age of 25 with children of her own and still found herself typecast in these roles. Though she accepted that this was the way that she needed to support her family and make her bread and butter. It's like High School Musical. All of them were way past their age that they were playing, but she has a very youthful face. So, you know, I know it sucks. It sucks. But that the same thing happened to Judy Garland as well, Shirley Temple. It happened to them. They didn't want to play the sweet girl next door, but the face, the young face. In 1949, Powell sang at Harry S. Truman's inaugural ball, and she sang for 5 U.S. presidents and the Queen of England. In 1951, Powell starred in the musical comedy Royal Wedding and in Rich, Young, and Pretty.
Does Tom know how you feel?
Oh, goodness, no.
Would you forget about me in South Africa?
But how could I?
Good evening.
Good evening.
May we play something special for you?
The stars at night are big and bright. Deep in the heart of Texas, ball and ball. Deep in the heart of Texas.
Known mainly for her roles in musical comedies, Powell appeared in a rare dramatic role in the film noir The Female Animal, 1958, from Universal Pictures, which marked the final film of co-star Hedy Lamarr. And I did a Hedy Lamarr video as well. Go check that out if you haven't seen it.
Even me. Vanessa Windsor, the perfect star, becomes a perfect mother, except pay a few bills.
Don't you ever say that again.
Well, I'm tired of giving a performance. You understand that?
Oh, I don't think so. Do you? As I indicated before, I think you're a very good-looking young man. If I had money, I wouldn't mind paying a bill or two for you myself. I know you want to. I've known it from the first moment I stepped into this house. Didn't you? Oh. I'd pay any amount of bills for you. Keeps it in the family, too, don't you think?
Listen to me, I didn't ask you down here. I don't know what your game is, but you're going to keep your mouth shut about it.
Oh, sure, keep my mouth shut or you might lose your meal ticket. And that'd be disastrous, wouldn't it? Well, I'm just as phony as you are. I'm not even a real Windsor. Don't think she hasn't let me know it either.
Look. Come on, baby. It's going to be okay.
In 1964, Powell starred as Eliza Doolittle in a production of My Fair Lady at Los Angeles Valley West Theater, which established a record gross for West Coast-based productions of the play. She also toured in 1964 in a musical review titled Just 20 Plus Me. It was done to a recorded track and featured Powell with 20 handsome chorus boys. So between 1981 and 1982, Powell had guest starring roles on The Love Boat and Fantasy Island, and in 1985 she started a 9-month run in the daytime soap opera Loving, playing a tough mother and businesswoman, followed by another guest starring part on Murder, She Wrote in 1985. In 1988, Powell was cast in a recurring guest role on the popular sitcom Growing Pains, in which she played Irma Seaver, the mother of Dr. Jason Rowland Seaver. The same year, in May 1988, Powell married her longtime companion, former child actor Dickie Moore. Speaking of her married life, let's go back into chronological order, okay? So on November 5th, 1949, Powell married former figure skater Gerhard Anthony Steffen. Her first child, Gerhard Steffen III, was born July 21st, 1951. Powell's second child, Suzanne Eileen Steffen, was born on November 21st, 1952. Powell began an affair with Jean Nelson, her co-star in Three Sailors and a Girl. Powell and Nelson divorced their spouses with plans to wed, but Nelson backed out after his divorce, and Powell and Steffen divorced in August 1953. Powell married automobile executive Patrick W. Nerney on November 8, 1954. Their daughter, Lindsay Averill Nerney, was born on February 1st, 1956. Powell and Nerney divorced in May 1963. Powell married and divorced twice more before falling for former child star Dickie Moore in 1982 and marrying him 6 years later. Following the death of her husband in 2015, Powell sold their Manhattan apartment and relocated permanently to their second home in Wilton, Connecticut. And then after that, Powell passed away of natural causes in Wilton on September 16, 2021, at the age of 92. But she had longevity. She worked through the very end, and she just has a very nice aura. You know, I haven't done like a feminine analysis in so long, so I'll do one for her really quickly. But if you hear her voice, is very soft and airy, but can be very deep when she sings. And she has this very flirty, girl next door, wholesome wife, bake you cookies, PTA mom, you know, type of look, and just wholesome. But I always said the women who looks the most like this tend to have the darkest undertones in terms of, like, you know, they can be animals, you know, rare, if you catch what I'm saying. But a lot of people, like, they hate being typecasted into that because internally they're not, and they battle through a lot. But it's the face. We can't help the face that we're born with, or the demeanor and stuff like that. But she definitely tried to break out of that. She reminds me of in Desperate Housewives, Brie. I'm sorry, Brie. She reminds me of Brie in Desperate Housewives a lot. But I really like this character. Comment below who else would you guys like to see. My favorite breakdowns are always the old classical Hollywood. They were more interesting too. The newer generation is just not as interesting. But I love you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.